Today we're going to be doing the OPT workshop. I have Ms. Sandra and Ms. Olivia with me. They're going to be helping me with the questions. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat box and Sandra will fit them to me at the end of the presentation. So once again, welcome. My name is Rosa Villegas and I am the Educational Advisor in the International Student Center. So the workshop today is about optional practical training, and we hope you enjoy this presentation. How are you doing, Sandra? How is everybody doing? Staying safe?
Yes, we're trying to as much as possible.
Well, welcome to my workshop. Again, feel free to type in your questions and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. Let's get started. So what we hope to accomplish today is that you understand the different types of optional practical training, OPT, and that you also understand the rules and requirements and how to apply for OPT. Our discussion today will include what is OPT, OPT eligibility requirements, application time frame, when is the best time to apply, application process, reporting requirements and responsibilities during OPT, travel and OPT, and ending your OPT and F1 status. So I hope that by the end of the presentation, you are familiar with all these topics. Optional practical training, OPT. So what is OPT? OPT is an abbreviation for optional practical training. It's a temporary employment authorization that gives F1 students an opportunity to apply knowledge gained in the classroom to practical work experience. Meaning you have been focusing on your classes, you have been doing really good and you're getting your diploma, you're getting your knowledge in the books, but now you're ready to practice and go out in the real world and work. It's a training opportunity that must be directly related to your major. So for example, if you're a business major, your OPT has to be related to business. If you're a nursing major, it has to be related to nursing. OPT is available before and after your studies at PCC. We have two types of OPT, pre-completion OPT. You can apply and be doing pre-completion OPT during your course of study at PCC. So if you want to gain that experience early while you're still in school, then you can apply for pre-completion OPT. Most of our students apply for post-completion OPT. That means it's completed after you complete your classes at PCC. You have to have earned your degree at PCC. OPT is authorized by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. You're going to be hearing a lot about USCIS. That's what it means. And post-completion OPT is authorized for 1 year per each education level. For example, after you finish your associate degree here at PCC, you can work for and apply for OPT and work for 1 year. And as you move up, you could be doing 1 year of OPT at each degree level. So I mentioned pre-completion OPT and post-completion OPT. This will show you, this table shows you some of the differences of the OPT type. So for both of them, you have to be 1 year in academic studies first and be maintaining your status. You must be recommended by the ISC advisor, either myself or another advisor in the office, and is authorized by USCIS. So although we help you through the process, we cannot approve it for you. It has to be approved by USCIS. For pre-completion OPT, you can apply as early as 90 days before you reach your 1 year requirement. For post-completion OPT, you can also apply 90 days before your graduation date and 60 days after your graduation date. Graduation day is the last day of the semester. For pre-completion OPT, as I said earlier, you can work during your studies at PCC, but you have to remember that you still have to maintain your full-time enrollment. So if you're able to manage a full-time enroll 12 units or more and work part-time, then you can go ahead and do pre-completion. Post-completion OPT, you can only work after you finish your degree. So you're gonna be switching from being a full-time student to being a full-time employer. And so you can work as many hours as you want or less, but at least you have to work 20 hours. Pre-completion OPT can last as long as authorized and up to 12 months during your studies, as I said earlier. For post-completion OPT, it's also up to a year, and the time will be approved in your employment authorization card. So depending on when you apply, then that's hopefully you get the whole year. Pre-completion OPT does take away from your post-completion OPT. For example, if you decide to do pre-completion OPT for a year, part-time, that's about 6 months. So when you do apply for post-completion OPT, you will only have about 6 months left of full-time OPT. So that'll be something that you wanna keep in mind, depending on your long-term goals. What do you want to do in the future? Do you want to gain the experience while you're taking classes, or do you want to wait until afterwards? So when you're ready to apply, we can have the discussions, or you can start thinking about it, what is best for you. But we will help you with either one. So moving on, OPT eligibility requirements. So as I say early, you must be an F1 student in good academic standing in order to be eligible for OPT. You must have been in valid F1 student status for at least 1 academic year before starting OPT. You have not had 12 months of OPT authorization in the past for the same degree level. I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. So here at PCC, you're gonna finish your AA or your AS. You can apply for OPT, work for 1 year, transfer to earn your bachelor degree, apply for another year of OPT. And if you're earning a STEM major degree, you probably have heard that STEM majors can extend their OPT for more than 1 year, but it's only at the higher level, bachelor or higher level. So again, if you're a STEM major, that'll be something that you wanna consider. And as you move up and earn a higher degree, you can always be applying for OPT after earning your degrees. Also, if you have applied for curricular practical training, CPT, and you have not accrued 12 months or more, then you're still eligible for OPT. But if you have already authorized for 12 months of OPT at the same degree level, you will not be eligible for OPT at the same level. Again, you have to be moving up. You cannot stay at the same degree level. Application time frame. So we're gonna go over the dates. This may be a little too much, but hopefully by showing the graph and explaining to you, you will understand it better and will be easier for you to understand when is the best time to apply. So the time frame when you're applying, it will all depend on your completion of studies. I'm referring when you're applying for post-completion OPT. So completion of studies date is when you actually finish all of your courses required and are earning the associate degree. For example, if we look at this chart for the spring semester, our spring semester is from February 18 to June 14. This will be your completion date, June 14. We are already in the period where you can apply for OPT because the OPT window 90 days before started March 16, and it's gonna end 60 days after your grace period, which is August 13. These are the recommended dates when you can start working. So these dates, you're gonna choose when do you wanna work, what are the dates that you wanna do. So hopefully this will help you when you're filling out the application. What you need to know about the timing of your OPT application is very important. Remember I say the earliest you can apply is 90 days prior to your program end date. For the spring semester, this semester we're in right now, the end date is June 14. That's why you can already start applying and submitting your application. Your application must be received by USCIS by the end of the 60-day grace period. Based on the chart that I showed you before, it will be August 13. USCIS must receive your application within 30 days of the OPT I-20 issue date. The I-20 issue date is the date next to your advisor's signature on page 1 of the I-20. And I'm gonna show you later on a picture of the I-20 so that you know what I'm talking about. USCIS processing time is approximately 3 to 5 months. Just to put it in a little bit better perception, this graph will show you the 90 days before your graduation day. Graduation day will be June 14. This is your 60-day grace period after June 14. And this is when you can start your OPT, your 1 year of OPT. Steps to apply for OPT completion, post-completion OPT. So there are quite a few steps. First and foremost, you have to apply for graduation. Remember, for post-completion OPT, you have to be earning a degree, and therefore you need to apply for graduation. You can either apply online or you have to have a meeting with your academic counselor. While you're meeting with the counselor, you also complete the OPT request form. It's included in the forms on our website. You need to collect and complete all documents required for OPT. You need to submit your request to the International Student Center. Right now, because the office is closed, you're going to be sending your request through email. You're going to, after we process, you're going to receive confirmation that we completed your request, and you're going to receive your OPT I-20. Then once you have our I-20, you're going to collect and put together your packet so that you can mail it to USCIS. And then you receive your work authorization. The application checklist. So if you take a look at this list, these are all the documents that are required to apply for OPT. Most of these documents, you already have them. You're only going to be making copies of them, or you can download the forms on the website, and I included the website link so it's easier for you to print those forms. This form, G1145, it's just an information form. It only asks for your name and contact information. The application fee right now is $410. You will also need to include 2 recent passport photos, because when they issue the employment authorization card, it's going to have your photo on it. The actual application for employment is Form I-765. I always recommend that you type it, then print it and sign it. You can also handwrite it, but it kind of gets a little messy, so I always recommend that you type it. You're gonna include a copy of your I-94. This is the link where you can print it. It's just your travel record of the last time you entered the US. You're gonna include a copy of the OPT I-20 that we issue to you. Make sure it's signed by us and make sure you sign it in blue ink. Copy of all I-20s you ever had issued to you, either from our school or if you attended other schools, from the other schools as well. You also need a copy of passport, copy of F1 visa, copy of your previously issued employment authorization document if you ever applied for OPT in the past, and the OPT request form signed by the student and the academic counselor. So make sure you're meeting with your academic counselor, make sure you are on track to graduate and earn your degree, and make sure they sign that form for you. Once you have all these documents, you're gonna be ready to complete your application and send it in. Remember I say you have to pay for $110. This fee is not for our office. This fee is for the US Department of Homeland Security. It's for $110 and it's part of the application fee. This is how you're gonna write your check, but also make sure you do not use a temporary check. So your name has to be pre-printed on the check. Make sure you sign your check and make sure you use a check from a US bank. When you're writing your check, make sure you spell out US Department of Homeland Security, just like this. Don't use initials. And then over here on the memo or the for line, you can use Form I-765. You can also include your name or you can include your CVIS ID number so that when they receive the check with your packet, they know it's for your application fee. These are some of the other documents that you need to include with your application. Remember, I mentioned I-94 form. When you go to the link, this is how it looks. You're gonna put in your personal information from your passport, and this is what you're gonna get back. You're gonna print this page because it's needed for your document application. This is a copy of your visa. This is inside your passport. So if you have renewed your passport, you may have it on your old passport. So make sure it's your visa and it's the F1 visa. And some students may have a visitor visa because at one point they had a visitor visa, but then they changed or they came into the US to study, so they're F1. So make sure you copy the F1 visa. Remember I mentioned the I-20. So this is the first page of your I-20. What I want you guys to make sure is that you major one, the listed major on your I-20 is the major that you're earning your degree in. Because remember we say OPT has to be related to your major. So if for some reason you take a look at your I-20 and it has a major that you had when you first came into PCC, but then you change it, we also need to change your I-20 to match what you actually getting your degree in. This is very, very important. Remember I say USCIS has to receive your I-20 within 30 days of the issue date. This is what I'm referring to. So if you request an I-20 and we issue it to you, make sure that once you get it back, you mail your OPT packet to USCIS within 30 days of this date. If for some reason you delay and you're not sending it on time and it's reaching or past the 30 days, make sure you let us know before you mail your OPT packet. We will have to cancel this OPT request and issue you a new one to issue the new date. This is a section of page 2 of your I-20. Once you request your OPT, it's going to show on the second page under employment. So you'll see this is what we're requesting. Post-completion OPT, full-time, because we just issued the I-20 will say request. Once it's approved, processed by USCIS and approved, the status will change to approve. These are the dates that you as the student is requesting. This is what's going to be reported on the I-20, but also make sure once you get your employment authorization card or your approval notice that you check the actual days that you've been approved to work. It may be the same dates, it may be a little bit different. And this is how your EAD card will look like. It's gonna have your picture, your name, your case number, and these dates, if the request was processed and approved in a timely manner, these dates will match those dates. If for some reason it was delayed or something happened, the dates may be different. This is the only time that you can work. So if it's different than this, make sure you go by this. This is the only time that USCIS is approving you to work legally in the United States. Okay, so one of the forms that is required for the application is the form I-765. I'm gonna be honest and tell you this is a long form. It's 7 pages long, but if you look at it, it's very easy to complete. But I'm giving you some guidance. And also if you go to the website where you're downloading this form, the USCIS have specific instructions on how to fill it out. So you can either follow my instructions, make sure you follow the USCIS instructions. So this is the first page. Make sure you're always going to the website to print the most current form, and it will have the dates here. As long as you go to the website, if this is expired already, but you printed it from the website, it will be no problem. They change from time to time, not too often, but they do. So on page 1, all it's gonna ask you is if this is your very first time applying for OPT, you're gonna do initial permission. You're gonna just click on this box. If you had applied for OPT in the past and you had, or you're applying for a replacement on your car, of course, make sure you select the appropriate box. Typically, it's gonna be the first box. Part 2, it's about you. Make sure you're using your legal name as it appears in your passport. Don't use your nickname, don't use a different name. It should match your passport. If you have ever used a different name, make sure you put it in here. If not, you can leave it blank or make sure you write NA, non-applicable or none. That way your form is complete. Page 2 has a little bit more information that is needed. Your address is very important. USCIS is going to be sending you information by regular mail. So make sure you're using an address where you know you're physically receiving mail. If you're using your relatives or friends' address, make sure you put in care of and put their name. But make sure you let them know that you're expecting mail from USCIS. Otherwise, they may return it back and it's hard to get mail back. If you leave in a physical address that is different than your mailing address, make sure you use your physical address. So depending on your answer for number 6, you will either need to complete this section or not complete it. Again, it all depends on your situation. Typically, F1 students do not have information for question 8 and 9, so leave it blank or put N8, non-applicable or none. When you're doing questions 10 to 13, make sure you read them and answer that with your information very specific. Make sure you double check what you enter. Make sure you didn't accidentally enter the wrong information. If you ever work in the US, you probably already have a social security number, so you're gonna answer yes on 13 and 13A and enter the number on 13B. Again, most of the students may not have a social security number, so I do recommend that you apply for a social security number at the same time you submit in your I-7 recommendation to say yes, because you'll get your social security number within a couple days or a few days after you apply and get approved for your OPT. But if you're getting your social security number through this application, make sure you enter your parents' information on these questions. Again, make sure it's your legal or their legal names from their passport. Last thing on this page is the country of citizenship or nationality. So make sure you are using it based on your passport. Page 3. So everything that is highlighted is what you need to answer. Question 19 to 20, city, province, and country birth and date of birth. Again, I always recommend type it and make sure you double check. Make sure you didn't make any mistakes. Remember earlier I showed you an I-94 and I circle a number that was in the I-94. That number is going to be needed here. It could be all numbers or you have a combination of numbers and letters. So make sure you copy the number here. Your passport number, you have your passport, so make sure you enter as it appears on your passport. The country that issued your passport, that's your country of citizenship. Some of you may have renewed your passport here in the US, but you don't put the US because the US didn't issue the passport. It's your country, you just renew it here in an office here. So you're always gonna put your citizenship country. The expiration date of your passport. So you're gonna be looking at your passport page for all of this information. The date of your last arrival into the US, this information is in your I-94. So make sure you look at it. When you print your I-94, you're gonna need that page to complete some of this information. And then moving on, last time you enter the US, you can either put the airport name or the city, doesn't matter. What status did you came in? For the most part, it will be F1, but if you came in under a different status and then you change status in the US, you're gonna put the status that you enter. So if you came in with a H visa and then you change in the US to F1, then you're gonna put in that you came in with the H, even though now you're an F1 student, because the following question will ask you which visa category you're in right now. So you're currently under F1. And last but not least is your I-20 number. This is the number on your I-20. Always starts with the N and it's in the upper left corner of the first page and second page. Always starts with the N. So make sure you copy the number exactly as it appears. It's gonna be N, 00, and then a series of digits. Because you're gonna be applying for post-completion OPT, this is the code that you're gonna use. Each type of OPT has a code that is unique to it. So again, this is the code for post-completion OPT. If for some reason you're gonna be applying for pre-completion OPT, it will be letter C, 3, and letter A at the end. But for the most part, you're gonna be applying for post-completion OPT. This is the code. And everything else does not apply to you because this is the section that you're answering. All of this you can apply, enter none, leave it blank, or non-applicable, because it will not apply to you. After you transfer to the university and you have a bachelor's degree and you're applying for OPT, then maybe some of this will apply to you. Page 3. So this is a statement that you're testifying that all the information that you're given is correct, that you can read English. So you're going to answer 1A or select 1A. And then you're going to put in your contact information. So make sure, even though the applicant's date, time, phone number is the same as your mobile, make sure you just complete these fields. Make sure you put in your PCC email address or your personal email address, whichever email address you want to use for OPT application, that's fine. Really, really, really important is your application signature. After you finish typing your application, go ahead and print it and then sign it. They currently do not accept electronic signature, so it has to be signed. And make sure when you sign it inside the box only, because the signature is going to show on your employment authorization card. And make sure you also date your application. These 2 pages, pages 5 and 6, most likely are not going to be used, so you can leave them blank, but you will still need to print them and include them in your package. Page 7, which is the last page of the application of the form, may or may not need to be completed. It all depends on your unique situation. So this is just for additional information. For example, if you were ever authorized for CPT or OPT in the past, this is where we're going to include that information. We're going to put the page number and the explanation in this section. So again, maybe totally blank, it's okay. Just make sure you still print it. So you're going to include all 7 pages, even though maybe the last 3 are going to be empty. How's it going so far? I know it's a lot, but we're getting through this. After you collected all the documents and the checklist, after you completed all the forms, and after you receive your OPT I-20, then you're ready to mail your application to USCIS. You can double check the address where you mail it in. It goes based on the state that you are filing. Right now you're in California, so if you're using the USPS, United States Postal Service, you're gonna mail it to this address. If you're using one of the other carriers, you're gonna mail it to this address. So you have to decide which address or which carrier you're gonna use so that you know which address is the right one. Some students will ask me, so does it make a difference? No, it does not make a difference. Just make sure you write the address properly, you include the zip code, and that you do everything like it is here. If you need to double check, make sure you go to the link and double check the address, but it should be fine. So what happens after you apply? So after you apply, you're gonna sit and relax for a few months because now USCIS needs time to process. Typically, the average processing time is 3 to 5 months. That's why we always recommend to apply as early as possible. Again, if you graduate in this spring and you're considering applying for OPT, I would say you need to start doing it as soon as possible. After you have your application, you're gonna receive what's called a notice of action. It's gonna have a receipt number. With that receipt number, you can come into this website and you can check your application process or where is it at in the steps. Don't panic and don't check every day because it's still gonna say the same thing. Maybe check a month later after you send it in. They'll probably have it. So it's gonna say we have received your application. Then maybe check it every 2 or 3 weeks, because once they mail your application, they're gonna update it here in the case status, and that way you know to keep an eye on your mail. Make sure that please don't move while your OPT is pending or in process. If you move, you need to update your address with USCIS. And you don't want to take a chance of your mail already being sent and you moved and you don't receive it. So if possible, if you don't need to move, then maybe you can hold on. But if you do move for some reason because you have to move, make sure that you go to USCIS website and there's a form that you will need to complete to update your address. And finally, once your application is processed by USCIS, you're gonna get your approval notice. Again, you're gonna get that notice by mail. Typically, you get 2 envelopes from USCIS. One is your approval notice, and the second one is gonna be your actual employment card. Again, these are by regular mail, and so make sure you check any envelopes that come from USCIS. You need to open them and read them and carefully, because it might be your approval notice or it may be a request for additional information. Sometimes they request additional information and they will send you a letter and they will give you time to comply with that request. So always check your mail. And if you apply for a social security number, your card will come in 2 or 3 days right after you get your approval notice. They usually come around the same time. If for some reason you didn't get your social security number and it's been 2 weeks, then my recommendation is always to go to the social security office with your approval notice to inquire about your social security number. It's probably just been in process. It may just taking a little longer. I never had any problems with the students who have applied for social security number. They always tell me it usually comes one after the other. So what are your responsibilities when you are in OPT? Remember, when you're in OPT, you're still an F1 student, so you still have to follow all the same F1 regulations, but you also have additional responsibilities. So one of the responsibilities is that you have to report your employment. And how do you report your employment? So in order to report your employment, you're gonna create an SCVB portal account. It's similar to a Lancer Point account where it's gonna be your own personal account and you're gonna report your employment information. Make sure as soon as you start working that you are reporting employment, because you don't want to be considered as unemployed. That could affect you in the future. When you're approved for OPT, you are given 90 days where you can still be in legal status, maintaining your F1 visa, but it's only 90 days. So if you're having a hard time finding a job or you're looking only for full-time jobs, I will suggest or recommend that you take part-time jobs. That way you are at least working and reporting employment. You can continue looking for employment. You can take a couple part-time jobs that will make you a full-time employer, or just do whatever you can to make sure you don't exceed the 90 days. After if you're getting very close to your 90 days, you may be jeopardizing your F1 status if you pass the 90 days. So that's the case, make sure you reach out to us, make sure you keep us informed what's going on, make sure you keep track of all the jobs that you're applying so that we know you're trying. But like I said, I recommend even taking a part-time to start with and continue looking for part-time, other part-times or full-time jobs. So you're gonna eventually be a full-time employee. Your field of study. Remember, I keep on repeating, when you're in OPT, your work has to be related to your major. And this is why, because you do have to report how does your employer, what are you doing that it relates to your major? So when you're working on something, make sure you think about it and say, okay, how is this related to my major? Because when you reporting on your portal account, it does ask you how is your job related to your major. So you have to be able to justify and say, yes, what I'm doing relates to my degree. It relates to what I study at PCC. So you might be asking, and how do I create that portal account? So as soon as you reach your approval date on your employment card, you're gonna receive an email from SCBP. That's the Student Exchange Visitor Program. That email is gonna give you instructions on how to create and maintain your status, create your account, I'm sorry, and how to report your employment. So make sure if you use your personal email or even the PCC email address, make sure you, once you're approved for OPT, that you're always checking your email every day, because you're gonna get this very important email. And if you don't get it, make sure you check your spam or junk folders, because it may be in there. So make sure you create your account. Make sure you report your employer's information, name of the company, the address, the phone number, the start and end dates, and the relationship to your major. One piece of information that I want to give you that is very, very important is to never delete information from your portal account. Let's say even if you work for a company for only one day because you didn't like it, or there was just something that you didn't like, and you left, and you were only there for one day, just keep it, make sure you put an end date, and then you have the option to add other companies as you find a new job. So never ever delete that information from there. That's your employment history record with the government. So OPT employment. So remember, you have to work at least 20 hours per week. That's considered full-time in the US. As long as you have 20 hours, you'll be fine maintaining your status. That's the minimum, but there is no maximum. So if you wanna work and make a lot of money and you feel like you can handle it, that's fine. You can work more than 40 hours per week. 40 hours is considered full-time. If the company gives you overtime, or if you want to have a full-time and a part-time, you can do whatever you're capable of. You can have multiple jobs as long as they're all related to your major. So make sure they are all related to your major. And if you want to start your own company and be your own boss, you can also do that as well. So, but be careful with this. Unfortunately, we cannot give you advice about how to set up a business. You have to consult an accountant or a lawyer, but it is possible. So if you want to be an entrepreneur and you're good about running a business, or you're good about whatever type of business is your major, make sure you follow whatever state or license requirements, and make sure you consult an accountant. Something that you also want to consider is that what will happen to your business after your OPT ends, because you're only going to be able to work for the 1 year of OPT. So it is good, and it's possible, it's available, and it's acceptable under OPT, but there are more things that you may want to consider. Other responsibilities that you may have during OPT, and maybe they're not responsibilities, but something that I wanted to talk to you about it, is that although insurance is not required when you're in OPT, we strongly recommend it. Especially right now, you never know, God forbid you get sick. If you have your insurance, then you're covered. Some companies will offer you insurance, but some may not. So if you want to continue using what you currently use as a student, the option is available to you. You do have to consider that you have to enroll within 30 days from your current end date. So right now you have insurance that's gonna end June 30th. Your OPT is gonna start either July or August, depending on your starting date, but you have to make a decision to enroll in July. So don't forget, this is very important because they only will allow you to enroll within the 30 days after June 30th. And the way you're gonna do it is that you're gonna contact the relation insurance company directly yourself. Right now, when you're a student, the fee is added to your tuition fees. And once you pay your fees, you activate your insurance. Since you're not gonna be registering for classes, then you're gonna, we can provide you the form, but you're gonna be dealing directly with the insurance company to purchase the insurance. Very, very important that you do it within the 30 days. The benefits and the price is the same as the student, because you're still our PCC student, you're still under RI-20, so you get the same benefits and the same price. They don't charge you more for it. Taxes. We all have to pay taxes whether we like it or not. As an F1 student, you're also required to file for taxes, regardless of your income earned. So even though you might say, well, I didn't make that much, you're still required to file for taxes. We did have a workshop already about taxes, and we have one coming up. Make sure you check our website for the next one is coming up on Friday. But you can also get more information in the IRS website. They have, as an international student, the forms are not the same as a resident or as a citizen. So when you're filing your taxes, make sure the person who's helping you or the company is familiar with non-resident taxes. The forms are different. I always say, you know, unfortunately I can't help you, but one thing I know is that don't use TurboTax. TurboTax does not have the form for F1 students. So make sure you go to a reputable company or an accountant that it's familiar with non-resident filing. We're almost there, but a few more things that I have to remind you is when you're in OPT, again, I say you're still considered an F1 student, so you still need to submit a travel request to us. Right now, you can mail it to our office. The documents that you need to travel are the same. Your F1 visa must be valid. Your passport must be valid. Your I-20 has to have a travel signature within 6 months. As a student, your travel signature is valid for a year, but as an OPT student, it's only valid for 6 months. So make sure if you're gonna travel, you let us know so that we can sign your I-20. You're gonna need your employment authorization document to enter the US. And although it's not required, it's strongly recommended that you have a letter from your company or from your employer saying, yes, you're hired and you have a job secured to come back to the US. Again, it's not recommended, but it will make it easier when you enter in the US and going through customs. What about if your OPT hasn't been approved? It's still pending, USCIS still has your application, you haven't had a response. It is very risky and we do not recommend it. Reason being is that you could possibly be denied for your OPT because you left the US. If it's in the process of being approved and it is approved while you are outside the US, you're gonna need the EAD card to enter the US. So you're either gonna have to have somebody, if you're living with relatives or your friends or roommates, they're gonna have to mail you the EAD card to your country or whatever you are in order to have it available to enter the US. Again, it's very risky, but if you must go, then just be aware that we do not recommend it. But if you have to go, I mean, there's nothing we can do to stop you. So you're saying, so what happens after my OPT ends? I finish my 1 year, what do I do now? So after the end date on your authorization, you do have a 60-day grace period, not from your I-20, but from the actual EAD card. So that's why it's very important that as soon as you get your EAD card, you check the dates, make sure they're correct. If they're not correct, you always get in touch with their office so that we can help you resolve that. But the 60-day is the last day that you work, that you were approved to work. You have 60 days to decide what you're gonna do. So some of the things that you can do is, if you're gonna transfer to the university in the US, you can request us to transfer your I-20. You can prepare to leave the US if you don't wanna continue your education here in the US. Or if you change in status, because you have the opportunity to change to a different status, then just make sure whatever decision you make or you decide, you let the International Student Center know, because we need to process your I-20 and your F1 status accordingly. So don't just disappear on us, make sure you let us know so that we can tell you which is the appropriate form to complete and submit to our office. Okay, just know that even though we're not in our office, you can always come visit us in the web. We have all the forms, we have events planned for you. If you go to the webpage for international students, you're gonna go to events, you're gonna have our calendar, and it's gonna have the events coming up. Right now we have an event coming up this Friday, which is the tax workshop. Sorry, this is the March calendar, but always visit us and go to the events. If you go to our homepage, if you go to resources, this is where all of our forms are, where you need to complete and submit to us. We're still open for business. We're still processing your requests. We're still here to support you as a student. So always visit us through email or through our webpage. This is the end of my presentation. Remember, we're here for you. We're here to support you. Here's our phone number. If you call us right now, make sure you leave a complete name, phone number where we can call you back, and your ID number. That will help us expedite us calling you back. We're doing the best that we can to call you back. Thank you, Sandra. You're doing an excellent job.
They do have questions, so at the end I'll ask.
Yes. Also make sure you visit us and you see us in Instagram, follow us, Facebook and YouTube. We're putting the videos in YouTube in case you missed it or you missed previous workshops. But also if you can please complete the survey, because this is the first time we're doing workshops online. So we wanna make sure that we are improving each and every time that we're doing them. So thank you very much for participating with us. Thank you for staying with me for a long hour with a lot of information. But remember, we're here to support you, so you can always email me, and I'm gonna answer some of your questions that you have right now. Ms. Sandra?
Okay, so one, they're a business administration major, but they wanna know if they can work in an art museum and gallery after they apply for OPT.
It could be a yes and no, depending on what you're gonna be doing at the art gallery. Are you gonna help supervise the team over there? What kind of job exactly are you gonna be doing that is gonna be related to business? So it all depends on when you look at the job description of the jobs that you're applying, make sure that it relates to business. If you just tell me a museum and you don't tell me more details, then it could possibly be a yes, depending on what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Another question is, my PCC 60 unit request will be finished by this summer semester. When is the best time to apply for OPT in my case?
So summer, I believe the end day of summer, and we do have summer graduation. So make sure you meet with the academic counselor to file for summer graduation. And I believe, according to my calendar, summer, last day of summer classes is July 28.
Yes.
you can count 90 days before that, and that's when you can start applying. So from July 28.
July 28. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Mhm.
One more question. What is the difference between OPT and CPT?
So CPT is curricular practical training. That's a training that perhaps is required by one of your major classes. So for example, I'll give you an example. Child development classes that require students to do field work. In order to do field work, you need to be approved because you're doing work outside the classroom. So that's considered CPT. It's field work. Or for example, another type of CPT is if you find an internship that is related to your major, then you're gonna register for an internship class and do the internship as approved through curricular practical training, CPT. So CPT has to be a requirement for your class or an internship class. They do have to be related to your major. OPT, it's just you do it, it's a work permit that you get through USCIS. You have to apply and pay to get that work permit. CPT is only, you don't need to pay for it. That's one thing. It takes 7 to 10 business, bless you. It takes only 7 to 10 business days to process because it's processed through the International Student Center, not USCIS. So it's less time, no payment required for CPT, but it has to be required for your class or for an internship class that you sign up for. OPT, you have to apply for it, you have to pay, and remember the processing time is average 3 to 5 months. Does that answer your question?
I have one more question.
Yes.
Do we have like a job career center, or do I need to find the job by myself?
Very good question. I forgot to mention, if your plan is to work in the US, I always recommend students to visit the Freeman Career Center at PCC. Right now, obviously, you're going to be scheduling appointments online or by phone. But they do. I'm sorry?
How it called, what kind of center is that?
Freeman Career Center.
Okay, thank you.
It's at PCC. They do help you with your job interview questions. They help you practice. They do help you create a resume. If you're not quite sure what kind of jobs you can get under your major, they can help you with that as well. So that's a good starting point. As far as finding the job, obviously you're going to be applying for your jobs yourself, but they will give you a lot of guidance on what's the best way to apply, where do you apply. Sometimes they have listings of posting of jobs that you can look at and see if they're related to your major that you can apply. Okay. Good question.
And the last one that I have is, after I got approved for OPT, what if I don't find a job or no one hires me?
Remember, you have the 90-day window. That's about 3 months. Hopefully within those 3 months, you're able to find a job. I always, like I say, I always recommend at least get a part-time job. A volunteer job can also be considered as far as your OPT. Worst case scenario is, I mean, you're not gonna get paid, but it's volunteer, but it's protecting your status, but make sure that volunteer job is related to your major. And if you do get, because the company will say, okay, we need you as a volunteer, make sure that you also report that on your portal account as a volunteer job. Make sure you put your start date, and that it's a possibility if you're having no luck finding job, but continue looking. Again, take a part-time job. You can also move out of state. Some students have moved out of state when they're in the OPT. So that's possible. Just make sure you report the change of status to us and to your portal account. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions that you guys have?
I think that's all the questions we have.
Well, if there are no more questions, I'm gonna end the meeting. Again, thank you very much for being part of the meeting today. We really appreciate, and if you can complete the survey, that will also help us improve. If you have any specific suggestions for me, again, I'm one of the advisors, Rosa Villegas. Feel free to email me or call, and we can schedule a meeting so that we can go over if your goal is to apply for OPT, CPT, or if you have any questions that you want more time, we can schedule the appointment.